Hey guys, and welcome back. It's officially July, and in June, I watched 30 freaking movies. That is like way too many movies to fit into one month, but that's okay. I had a great time watching them. I did attend a film festival, so that's just adding like an excessive amount of movies that you would normally watch in one day. I also decided to revisit some like old movies that I just forgot about or just never watched, so I felt like watching them. But with that being said, I am going to take out any movies that did not release in June of 2024, as well as the movies that I saw at the Chattanooga Film Festival, because I'm going to do that in a separate video and like my experience with that and all the movies and an in-depth review on those ones. So with that being said, that leaves us with 13 movies that I watched in June of 2024 that are available to the general public. So let's get into it. I'll be ranking them from my least favorite to my most favorite. Let's go. And number 13 is Insane Like Me. This is a vampire flick that I unfortunately did not have a single good thing to say about it. I usually try to find something to say about a movie, whether it's the acting, like pacing, premise, music. Nothing about this did I enjoy. It overall just had a very generic plot. It's just this guy goes to a party with his girlfriend. Vampires show up and take the girlfriend. Nobody believes him. And so he's trying to like seek justice for this. Honestly, what really took me out of this movie was the pacing of it. Like, there were times that just felt like we were thrown into the middle of a storyline, and then other times that felt so freaking dragged out, like a family drama, and then other times that were so sped up, I was like, what is even happening right now? And it suffered from a lot of cheesy moments. There were moments of like ghostly girlfriend scenes where she'd come back and kind of like talk to him and guide him, on what to do. The writing felt very underdeveloped, very cheesy. The acting felt very forced, unnatural dialogue. It just overall was not a good movie to me. Even like with movies where you're like, oh, this is so bad, it's good. This was not that, unfortunately. Number 12 is Cellphone. And this one, I honestly thought I was going to like it from the poster. And I usually do like tech horror movies. Anything that has to do with like a computer or a cell phone, I'm like, okay, I'm usually on board for this. But this one just did not make any sense whatsoever to me. The initial plot of the movie is that this girl gets into a car accident and unfortunately her husband dies, and now she's plagued with like these really dark or horrific images on her cell phone. Now, like 50 no, probably like 70% of the movie is just like flashbacks to her and her husband. So it feels very like drama hallmarky movie where we're just watching these like cutesy little flashbacks, very very little horror aspects to it. Really the only horror we get is when she sees these dark images on her cell phone, which were never really explained why she's getting these dark images on her cell phone. Then there's a twist at the end that just doesn't feel like it wraps up the story whatsoever. Some of the characters I personally liked, but a lot of people didn't. There's one character that's just like a certified yapper, and he just is talking, and kind of just like nonsense and very quirky. I really liked him. A lot of people in the reviews did not like him whatsoever. So I think if you get easily annoyed by like really just talkative, very dialogue driven characters, this one will definitely annoy you. At number 11 is Cinderella's Revenge, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's Cinderella getting revenge on her evil stepsisters and evil stepmother with the help of her fairy godmother. And I'm gonna be honest, this was like a lot better than I thought. Okay, not a lot better, it was better than I thought it was going to be, but still not that great. Unfortunately, like the first hour of it just feels like a Once Upon a Time episode. If you've ever watched the TV show, like where, there's a lot of world building, and there were some really cool like backdrop scenes that have to do with like the castle and like the location that they're in, like the costumes that they're wearing. But there's not much more to the plot other than what we already know about the Cinderella story, which is that she has a mean stepmother and mean stepsisters. And then towards the end, we start getting some horror aspects, but the horror aspects were pretty underwhelming, which there doesn't have to be a lot of like gore, or blood to be a horror movie. But with a name like Cinderella's Revenge and the title has like a knife with blood on it, I was expecting a lot more like oomph and carnage to it, and it was really lackluster. One thing that I think really just dragged this movie down for me though was the fairy godmother's character. Even though I thought she did really great in her role, I didn't like the way that they wrote her role because she's this like omniscient character. She makes a lot of jokes about like she makes modern day jokes about like Elon Musk or like buying stock in Apple, and it just felt very silly to me. Like it was supposed to come off as funny, but I was just like, it just felt very, I don't know, cringy. So I don't really recommend this one. And number 10 is Trim Season. And this one was just okay to me. I honestly thought I was going to like this one because I saw some pretty good images of it with like blood coming out of the eyes, the mouth. And I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty gnarly. But overall, it was just a very average movie. I think it had a very original concept to it. It's about these like young adults who go up to a remote marijuana farm to work for the season, like pick the plants, and then they get paid and they get to go their separate ways. But then once they get there, they start to realize that something is very weird and wrong with the family. They have these like dark secrets, and it starts to move into like supernatural, witchy, occult type of vibes. Now, like I said, the plot was pretty original. I don't think I've seen a plot like this before in a horror movie that has to like kind of mesh marijuana with these like sinister powers and stuff, and the repercussions of smoking it would be. I thought that that was pretty unique, and the practical effects when it came to this, like when it came to smoking and what the effects were, or just different like attack scenes, they were really, really good. But there were scenes that just felt very comical at times when it came to this witchy aspect to it. I think they were going for something very sinister, but then it ended up coming off as very like puppeteer comical, and I don't think that's what they were going for whatsoever. So it ended up just being very underwhelming and kind of silly at the end. One thing that I did really appreciate about it though, it had a really good representation. There is a non-binary character in the movie, and I absolutely loved that they had one scene where this individual is like taking a shower, and you can tell that they've had top surgery before, and it was just a very natural scene within the movie. It like wasn't the central focus or anything, and I love that more movies are doing this where it just happens naturally in a scene, and I really, really appreciated that. Coming in at number 9 is Pandemonium. And honestly, this one is probably my biggest letdown, unfortunately. I was waiting for this movie's release for so long. I knew that it was doing like its round in festival circuits. I knew that it had to do with like Dante's Inferno or some type of depiction of hell. And I love movies like that. I feel like we don't get enough of those. But when I watched it, I was just severely let down. I think it has one of the most beautiful opening scenes of 2024 horror movie so far. Like it opens with this like very like dark, somewhat foggy opening of these two guys dying in a car accident, and then it turns into this like very snowy, bright landscape, and then we get these images of like the doors to heaven and the doors to hell, and the dialogue and the banter between the two guys in the beginning of the movie is just so natural. I absolutely enjoyed it. But then as the movie starts to progress, it turns into an anthology, and I was not expecting that. But there's like 3 stories in the anthology, and they are all so uneven. Like the first one is insanely long, and even though I really liked it, it was very, very long. And then the second one happens. I also like the second story, and it felt like this one felt like a nice evenly paced, but then the third one happens and it barely feels like a story whatsoever. It is like maybe a quarter of the length as the other 2 stories were. It feels like the story that's supposed to wrap all of the movie up in one where you're kind of understanding like what's going on and him floating through purgatory and what's going to happen to him. And they just like jumbled all these things together and they were like, okay, credits roll. And so you're sitting there like, wait, what happened? Where is he? Why did they do that? And I just feel like they could have done so much better with this. It had so much potential because again, the imagery was gorgeous, the dialogue was perfect. Some of these like characters that they wrote were so good and like eerie and creepy and somber. And then it just ends up falling flat. I feel like I wouldn't recommend it unless you like movies with depictions of hell, because I do think that there are some scenes that do a really good job of that. But overall, it was pretty lackluster. Coming in at number 8 is Under Paris. And yes, I did like this movie, okay? I thought it was pretty entertaining from start to finish. It's very easy to please me with shark movies, though, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I liked that it had its own little unique spin on it. It's like somewhat of like an ecological horror, and the shark has something very special about it. And so they keep kind of, coming back to that throughout the whole movie, and it plays out, pretty big in the end. And speaking of the end, it has a batshit insane, almost like disaster type of movie ending. But I liked that about it. I thought it was just way over the top, but in a fun blockbustery kind of a way. We had some really good shark kills where they're like jumping up in the air and snatching people underwater and like whipping them around like a dog toy. So for the most part, I was entertained with this one. Coming in at number 7 is Kill Your Lover, and this is a very straightforward toxic relationship type of movie. It's about this girl who wants to break up with her boyfriend, but then all of a sudden he has this like weird mysterious illness going on with him. It's very toxic. It's spreading all over him, and unfortunately it starts to spread to her. Like if they touch each other, their skin starts to like melt off. It's pretty gnarly with the body horror. I loved that though, but I really liked that it was just a straightforward movie about toxic relationships. I think nowadays we're getting a lot of like elevated horror, which I do appreciate, but sometimes you have to like think so much about it. It's like really out of the box where you're like, okay, I think this is what it's trying to convey with its message, but I'm not quite sure. I just like that this one, you didn't have to think too hard about it. It was a very like tangible representation of a toxic relationship. And if you've been in a toxic relationship before, this will resonate with you. And it's kind of nice to see it in like a tangible, like monstrous form. So I overall had a good time with this. And the body horror, like I said, was really gnarly at times. Coming in at number 6 is The Devil's Bath, and this is like brand spanking new. This just came out on Shudder a few days ago, and this one is a very, very dark drama more than it is a horror, but it is a very horrific subject matter. I really didn't know anything about this subject matter. Pretty much what it's about is in 17th and 18th century, where people were very, very devout, strictly religious, and taking your own life was seen as the worst of worst sins, and your soul would be lost forever. You wouldn't be accepted into heaven. So in order for suicidal people to work around this, they would end up committing murder, going to the priest and confessing their sins, and then being absolved of those sins, but still having to pay the price of the death penalty, essentially. So somebody would kill them, but that was their way of being able to end their own life but still be accepted into heaven. And this movie is just such a realistic and bleak portrayal of the descent into like a severe depression. It's a very long movie, but I think it's methodical because it feels like we are watching someone like really before our eyes in real time like descend into depression, including like sleeping in her own vomit, like, somewhat self-harming, losing her appetite. It's just a very, very bleak horror drama. So just be cautious if you decide to watch this one. And number 5 is A Quiet Place Day One. And I really didn't have any expectations for this movie, like other than, I guess, one expectation that I'll go over in a second. But I just knew that it was Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, and I was like, okay, sign me up. It was a prequel to the A Quiet Place series, which I've only seen the first movie. I never got around to watching the second one, even though a lot of people love the second one. And I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was a great like blend of action and horror and just this like very sweet, heartwarming story at its core, and just how two people are like coming together in very dark times, and like the importance of companionship and just understanding humans during your darkest times. And I thought it was just such a beautiful movie. I absolutely freaking loved the cat too. I was worried the entire time. I feel like I need to watch this movie again because I was just solely focused on the cat. But my only complaint really about this movie is that I thought it was more so going to be a workup to them finding out that these characters or these aliens hunt by sound, but that's not really what it was. But once I let that go, I fully enjoyed it. I thought it was so beautiful. The bar scene in this movie is probably going to go down in history as like one of my favorite scenes in a movie. It was just so gorgeous. I loved this one. And number 4 is The Watchers. Yes, you heard that right. It's at number 4. I really liked this one. I feel like I'm the only person that's like defending this movie. I thought Ishana did such a great job with this, like with the world building, with the characters that she picked with this, with the imagery. I loved the little spin on this. I wasn't expecting that it was going to be like this, somewhat mythological, mystical movie. And I really liked that. And I think that they did a good job at balancing showing the creature like just enough. I think if we would have got too much from it, it would have felt too cheesy. But if we didn't get it at all, it would have felt very disappointing and underwhelming. And I thought that it just left just enough to the viewer's imagination and the, explanation at the end. Some people felt like that was like spoon fed to them, but I felt like it was just right. It wasn't too much. We've had movies in the past. I'm thinking of like Imaginary, where they literally, I felt like they had one sole character that was just telling the audience exactly what was happening play by play, and that wasn't what happened in The Watchers. I felt like it was just the right amount of explanation for the viewers to be able to digest what was going on. So I freaking liked this. And number 3 is The Last Stop in Yuma County, and this is not a horror, it's a thriller crime movie, but I needed to include it on this list because it's absolutely incredible. I loved this movie from start to finish. It is just such a testament to how like a simple premise can be executed so well, where it's just like an entertaining, fun ride for the viewer. It has impeccable vibes with like the stunning backdrop of like this Arizona desert and this diner with these incredible characters. Like Jim Cummings is freaking hilarious. And everybody that was picked for this movie was just like born to play these roles. I loved this so much, and I can't even like believe that this is Francis Galuppi's feature-length directorial debut, and this is what landed him the new untitled Evil Dead project. Like, imagine Sam Raimi watching your first full-length movie and being like, dude, this is so great. He is going to direct the next movie in my franchise. Like, that is so incredible. Also, Francis is just like the sweetest dude on the face of the planet. I was able to interview him and talk to him on our podcast, The Dark Screen Society.
Yeah, the guys at Coast House, Jose, Rommel, Rob, Sam, and Bruce all saw it, and then we jumped on a call, and it happened very fast. What I thought was going to be a sort of preliminary conversation was like, let's do this. And so, yeah, and that's why I talk about like when you ask for one moment, I just remember like coming out of my office and being like, what the fuck just happened, you know?
So go check that out because he just was incredibly inspiring in that episode. Coming in at number 2 is Exhuma. This freaking movie is just such a great blend of like folk horror, supernatural, history. There is just so much in this movie that was so mesmerizing when it comes to like culture and history, like things about feng shui and geomancing, and even just like the tension between two different cultures. I was just blown away by how they were able to like encapsulate all of this within the horror space and making it like very tense and eerie and creepy in moments, like while still being able to convey all these different themes. It was just phenomenal. It is very dialogue heavy and very like storytelling heavy. So be sure to watch it on a day where you're like really awake, because it did take me a couple of like sit throughs to watch it, because it's just a lot to consume all at once, but I promise you it's so worth it. And coming in at number 1 is Humanist Vampire, Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. I freaking love this movie. It's become one of my like all-time favorite films. I can't say enough good things about this. It is just so aesthetically pleasing. If you were like big into Tumblr, this movie will speak to you, because it just gives Tumblr vibes. It's about this young girl who's a vampire, but she doesn't like to kill people. She is way too empathetic about it. But if she doesn't kill, then she can't feed, and that means that she starves to death. So she is desperately trying to find like this workaround around it, or trying to work up the courage to be able to do it, until one day she finds this guy who is suicidal, and they kind of make this pact like, okay, well, if you are wanting to die and I am needing to kill, then, you know, let's do this. But then they end up finding a friendship between the two of them, and it's just absolutely beautiful and incredible. I cannot help but light up when I talk about this movie. I just think it's so brilliantly done, and there are some scenes in here that are so freaking iconic that I just know that if Tumblr were around, it would be a gift that everybody would be reblogging. So if you have a chance to watch this, please do. It's released like everywhere except for the United States. I don't know when it's going to get a US release. I know it's playing in movie theaters like in Los Angeles and New York, but other than that, I'm praying for a nationwide release soon, because this needs to be witnessed by everybody. Please make sure you leave in the comments what horror movies that you watched in June. I'm very curious to know if we watched the same movies or if I missed any movies. I am on a quest of watching every horror movie of 2024, so I have been keeping up with so many movies, but it feels like a new movie releases like every 5 minutes. I don't know where they're coming from. Like, truly, I have no idea. But let me know below. I want to know what you watched, what you ranked it, what was your favorite, what was your least favorite. I will also be doing a Chattanooga Film Festival video where I will be ranking all those horror movies, because there is a lot that I watched there. I think I watched like 11 movies there that I'm unsure of when their release date is going to be, but I still want to get my reviews and just kind of exposure on those movies and that film festival. But I also just did a video about all the horror movies that are coming out in July. So if you are unsure, there's again 11 movies coming out in July. So be sure to watch that so you can keep up to date on what's coming out, where you can watch it. But I will see you in the next video.